Hello everyone, welcome to NFTV. Hope it's a day and Ari. We've got some news to bring you from what Amanda Staveley has been saying in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Yes, hello everyone. I hope you're doing Ari. Welcome everybody to the multi-camera. We've got it back, everybody. This one's a low one, this one's a wide one. I hope you're doing Ari, everybody. But welcome to another video here on Newcastle Fans TV. Before we take a look at obviously going into the weekend's games. I say games because obviously the Lasses are playing on Sunday. That'll be my 70th 7-0 this season. And of course Monday night in Chelsea. We'll focus on that later on. But of course, Amanda Staveley has been chatting all things Newcastle United and of course the ownership and a little bit about Newcastle United women, which we're going to take a look at. So the first little audio clip that we are going to hear is about the TV rights and how Newcastle can hopefully grow their revenue from the likes of the TV rights, not just domestically but also internationally. Here is what Amanda Staveley said.
The Premier League, the football is such a unique asset class and yet such a unique product, and that it will always hold its value. I mean, the international rights will continue to grow and develop. I think the way we consume our football will change. At the moment, you know, we've actually forecast the Sky deal almost exactly as to where it ended up in the domestic market. You've got incredible interest in football. How that is developed and whether we ever go to a D2C model in 10 years to come or a combination, a hybrid model. But to do that, you need a lot of infrastructure.
So nothing too drastic there, you would think, no. But the next one I want to talk about is obviously when Amanda, Jamie Rubin and the PAF bought the club. She was asked the question around, does she feel that the value of the club is bigger since they've came in? Take a look at this.
The only thing I'll say about valuation is, in particular, we did, PIF and myself and my husband and the Rubin family, we bought the club, we think, well, at less than 2 times turnover. Most clubs at the top of the league, you know, you've seen valuations between 5 and 7 times turnover. You know, we look at things, you know, in a more measured way. We still look at evaluation, not just in terms of turnover, but we use multivariate models which look at EBITDA, look at profitability, and that's critical, especially with the environment we're moving into.
So of course she's not really answering it. I think she does. I think that's what she's basically saying. It's a yes, it is, because if you look at how far when we bought the club, we were literally, as we talked about, Eddie Howe had us pulling away from relegation zone, and then somehow we qualified for the Champions League. And then we got a League Cup final. It's in Newcastle, or if Newcastle were to be sold, there would be an extra couple of 100 million on there, without a shadow of a doubt. Of course there would be, and especially the commercial deals that they brought in as well. But it's interesting what she says next, and I want you to listen to this bit, because this involves Steve Bruce.
I think when you go in, you have all the hype of trying to acquire the club, and it took us 4 years to do that. We know that we're patient and we know we were persistent, but there needed to be dramatic change because the club had been run, you know, in a very different format, and we had very few commercial revenues. We had a team that was aged, a coach that didn't even want to come to work. We had a fan base that was very angry, and we had to take this, you know, incredible club and inject it with some life.
Wow. 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 Can we just hear that again?
A coach that didn't even want to come to work.
Wow. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. If that's a backhanded... Yeah, it is. It's a backhanded. We'll keep it clean. It is. Look, but she says it like it is. She can't say it directly, so she's got to say it indirectly. Let's be honest, Steve Bruce just didn't want to be there. And the first thing Eddie Howe does on his first day in at the club, he's there at 6 a.m. in the morning, and he's there till 6 o'clock at night, which is absolutely fantastic. It's just work ethic, and you know, the club having loads of time off, the players having loads of time off. Eddie Howe has them in full time, literally. Common sense, unbelievable what some of the stuff that went through under Steve Bruce. Absolute joke. But we've moved on from him now. We're on the up, of course. And speaking of obviously the up, Amanda obviously has grew, and not just Amanda. I'm talking the PFG movement. I've been a little bit unfair on the rest of them. They grew the commercial team, and of course the training. Obviously, we mentioned Eddie Howe. The training side of things have brought in Eddie Howe's own team as well. Take a look at what she said here.
You know, we have an incredible coach. We have incredible team. Bringing Eddie in and bringing the executive team was really important. Obviously, you know, everybody's very much involved in the day-to-day running of the club, but it's and it's difficult. You know, it's a very competitive market in terms of players and rules around that. So you have to be, you know, very focused.
Yeah, of course it's going to be. Newcastle are on the up, and despite some people saying that we're having a poor season, look at all the injuries, and we could still qualify for Europe next season, which I think will be an achievement in itself. But I want to talk about, because this has been in the media quite a while. Will the PIF/PCP/ the Reuben Sports Company, etc., will they invest in another football club? Interesting reading this.
Focus. Multi-clubs are part of having football. It's a real benefit to be able to have players and train players that aren't part of your squad. The UEFA rules are changing, and so we have to see what emerges. And obviously, you know, I think the dynamics around whether we could have a club has changed quite dramatically over the last year. So I still am a very big fan of the multi-club model. A lot of other competitors and friends in the Premier League have multi-club relationships, but it has to be considered as a whole. To Belgium, we've looked at, you know, a lot of European markets. We've looked in Asia, Australia. We've looked in Brazil, pretty much everything. We've looked at every market to see, you know, and getting players into this, you know, through our academy system and through that multi-club model will be very helpful in terms of, you know, allowing us to buy and have players part of our journey earlier on.
The answer is yes. She's keen. And it's not a massive surprise because we've seen it linked with France and Belgium recently. But, you know, you look at the City Group, they're acquiring clubs all around the world. You know, there is some, you know, talk that Girona and Manchester City can't play in the Champions League because they're owned by the same parent company. I think that'll happen. I think that UEFA will relax those rules. We'll have to see what Manchester City are about the FFP and what have you coming up shortly. But I really do think that'll be relaxed. And it's obviously it's just talked about there, and there's circumstances where, you know, you can get the academy players and you can learn from each other and what have you. And let's be honest, it's all about investment and getting around it. And let's be honest, that's what it is. If you're investing in a club that's doing well somewhere else in the world, you obviously can take their academy players. You can obviously, it's finance, isn't it? Into the group. Obviously, this finances in Newcastle at the minute were restricted, which is talked about. And if you do want to see the interview, you can see it in full. I've got a link in the description if you want to watch all of the interview, which it talks about the restrictions in more depth about it. But onto the last side of things as well. And this is brilliant. Take a look at this.
I'm delighted the women have done so well. You know, they came up, it's really hard. We had to start from League 4. And you can either go, it's one up, one down. So there's no, and the bottleneck's so difficult to get promoted. We got promoted in our first year. We're top of the next league now, and the women work so hard. What I've been amazed at is they've been on quite a similar journey to the men. They have the right chemistry, they're hardworking, they're brave, their football has improved dramatically. We create a really strong narrative around their journey, and we try to engage the community and say, look, we really appreciate, you know, if you support Newcastle men, you support Newcastle women. So we've had, you know, League 4 matches, you know, 26,000 in St James's. The girls get to play, women get to play on the main stage, which we love. Gives them an opportunity to feel and prepares them for big matches.
And what you said there, if you're a supporter of the men's team, you're a supporter of the women's team. Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. I've already said, like, you get yourselves to the women's game, you'll enjoy it, and that's key. If you support the men's team, you support the women's team. It's as simple as that. They represent the brand, which is Newcastle United. They put it on the badge. black and white, you support them, so fantastic. And also the little bit of a clip here about the TV rights in the women's game. Have a look.
The key thing from the start, the first deal that was done in women's football, I think it was the BBC Sky deal, was important because it gave eyeballs. And, you know, from the change in 2012 onwards, you suddenly see people watching football. Critical you have to have an element of free to play, free to air, just because the more eyeballs, the more the better. And eventually those broadcast revenues will creep up, I really believe. We have to lobby, we have to engage, we have to take responsibility as owners to give the audience and to give our players that opportunity. And I think that will come. There's a huge growth in women's sport, obviously, and a huge growth in football. But there are still a lot of issues around, particularly around the media rights.
So, of course, that'll affect Newcastle United moving in, which we are expected to be promoted, as she's talked about previously. So, obviously, Newcastle United will now be on national highlights on Sky, and a little bit on the BBC. Sky do more on the Championship than the BBC, as far as I'm aware. Obviously, if Newcastle then get in the WSL, the TV rights will affect, and no longer the FA will be running the top two divisions from next season. That's all getting changed around. That's for a video for another day, to be honest with you. But also, obviously, the commercial side of things I do want to touch upon once again with you, because she's talked about growing the commercial revenues, and obviously we know about the likes of the Seller deal, obviously we know the Adidas deal, but yeah, let's see what she says here.
I think we all have to do more to make sure that we grow our revenues. I think there's been a much more focus from the Premier League owners to make sure we grow our commercial revenues, and our media, and as a product we should be much more aggressive. There is a regulator coming in, and there's much more focus on sustainability. Sometimes when you over-regulate, you can slow growth, and I think we have to make sure that we get the right balance between the right regulatory environment, the right rules, and the right financial fair play, the rules that promote growth. And that's the only way you're going to get great football. And actually, the one thing about the last few seasons in the Premier League is any club can win. Any club can win any game. And that's good. That means you get some incredibly exciting football. So we have to provide great product. I'm a big advocate, I know, of getting allowing media into our dressing rooms. We've been quite brave with that because we weren't a big club, so we had to go and tell our story. And I think the more we engage our audience and involve them in our journey, the more that revenue will grow.
And, of course, it was hosted in Saudi Arabia. Of course, she was asked, would she invest in a Formula One team? And if so, which team was that?
My husband and I, we looked at Williams a few years ago, and we were really excited. We saw a lot of similarities between Williams and Newcastle, and same. So we've looked at quite a lot of teams, and it's such a great business, and we're so proud to be here today. So we do love Formula One.
Sadly, not this beautiful team. Love Ferrari since the mid-90s, just like the tune. Having a Ferrari this weekend in Saudi Arabia. No doubt there'll be some journalists mentioning, linking that of Newcastle United, of course. We all know which ones we're on about. But we'll not get into that. But they just had some investment potentially looking into Williams. So obviously at the back of the grid, unfortunately, it's not one of the front runners. But there you have it. Are you surprised by anything that's just mentioned today? Or is that business as usual? So I'm always quite intrigued when they have these sit-down interviews, and especially where she was based in Saudi Arabia as well. There is other questions that I haven't pulled in because it's not really relevant in Newcastle, just like the Saudi League and what have you. And but yeah, you can, as I said, there's a link in the description if you want to see the full version of that down below. Please do let me know how you are feeling about the whole situation of what she said there. So the two things from me that I'll take away, well, three things actually. The women's stuff, she's obviously heavily divested, but now that. Obviously the criticism of Steve Bruce, and of course she wants to look at investing the PIF / whether it's PCP on their own one, invest in another club. We'll have to see on that, but I'd imagine it'll be collective. But they have it. We already know that the PIF already invested in 4 of their own clubs in Saudi Arabia. Will the PCP though? But that's, who knows? Who knows? You never know. But that is it from me, everyone. Watch what we say, Dean. See you later. Ta-da.